Now let's talk about table spaces. Actually, we talked about table spaces in the DB2 Essential Training 1 course when we were describing the DB2 environment. We said a table space was a logical layer between your logical tables and your physical disk and memory. So in this figure, we created table space myTBLS and associated it with disk 2 and buffer pool 1. Then we created or altered table B and indicated that this table be associated to table space myTBLS1. This is how you can tell DB2 which physical resources you want to use for your logical tables. We also talked in the DB2 Essential Training 1 course about the different table spaces created by default when you create a database: syscat space, temp space 1, and user space 1. In this video, we provide a bit more detail about creating your own table spaces. So, as I said before, basically a table space is going to abstract the details of physical storage, and that's where you place you store your tables. It is composed of one or more containers, where a container can be a file or files, directories, or raw devices. And as I showed you in the example before, you have to specify a page size, and those are the page sizes I mentioned earlier that are supported for 8, 16, and 32K. And when you create a table space, there has to be a buffer pool that already exists with the same page size. Then the other parameter that you need to specify when you create a table space is the buffer pool name that you will be associating this table space with. You have to specify the extent size. If you don't specify it, there is a default for that. So in my previous example, I didn't specify extent size. The same thing with the prefetch size. If you don't specify it, there is a default. And the number of pages to prefetch means basically that you will be retrieving from disk and moving pages from disk into the buffer pool, and you will be prefetching more pages. So DB2 it uses a prefetch size because in anticipation of you using more pages than what you're going to be requesting. And for prefetch size, this is where you specify the number of pages to prefetch. Prefetch means DB2 will be prefetching or moving more pages from disk to the buffer pool than you had requested. So DB2 will move more pages than you had requested from disk to the buffer pool, and it is done for performance reasons. DB2 anticipates that you will be using more of these pages, so that's why it's going to bring more to the buffer pool. And so the prefetch size is going to determine how many more pages you will be bringing to the buffer pool. If you, depending on your application, if maybe you specify a prefetch size that is too big, then it may not be good for performance because you are bringing too many pages, and they will be removing maybe useful pages in the buffer pool to bring these new pages. So sometimes you should, it depends on your application what type of or what size of prefetch you should specify. Now let's talk about table space types. There are 3 types of table spaces: regular for user tables, and the typical example is user space 1, which is what was created by default when you create a new database. Large is also used for user tables, but also you can store large objects in XML. And temporary is, as the name says, it is going to be used for temporary tables. So there are, within temporary table spaces, we have 2 types: system temporary. For example, we have temp space 1 table space, which is also created by default when you create a new database. There must always be at least one system temporary table space. This type is used by the system, meaning DB2. When there is not enough space in memory, DB2 will create tables within this system temporary table space to finish its calculations. Once it finishes with these calculations, it will delete the tables. So for example, DB2 may do this for sorts, joins, or for other DB2 internal operations. Then we have user temporary tables spaces, and these are used for temporary tables created with the declare global temporary table statement or the create temporary table statement. We will talk more about these temporary tables in the lesson about working with database objects. User temporary and system temporary table spaces are often confused by common DB2 users. Just remember that system temporary table spaces are from the system, that means DB2 manages them, while user temporary is managed by the user, meaning a regular user of DB2 who explicitly creates these temporary table spaces to work with temporary tables for his or her own application.